I was staying with my friend for a couple of weeks in the town I grew up in. She works at a restaurant. Without giving away too many details about the location, it's a plaza with the river nearby, a movie theater, restaurants, and boutiques. We entered through the parking garage on the bottom floor, which has 3 stories. Her shift was about 6 hours, so I decided to do some shopping, listen to music, and walk around before eating at the restaurant my friend works at. I was sitting alone at the bar in the corner alone, listening to music. A bigger man approached me. He had a security guard beanie on that was incredibly dirty and tattered up. He was muttering, and his eyes were barely open. What I got from his muttering was, is anyone sitting? But keep in mind, it was incredibly muttered. I'm just guessing what he was trying to say. All of this was said while he was switching back and forth between looking into my eyes and staring at my chest. I told him multiple times I couldn't understand what he said. After a bit of back and forth, I put the headphones back around my neck and he left me alone. I told my friend about what happened immediately. I tried to shake it off, hoping it was an isolated incident. If this is where the story ended, I wouldn't be writing this, unfortunately. About an hour later or so, I see someone approach the bar to my left out of the corner of my eye, and I felt their eyes on me. I didn't look, but somehow I knew it was him. My heart started beating really fast. I texted my friend and told her I felt really sketched out. I wanted to believe that I was misreading things and was just letting anxiety get the best of me, but I couldn't shake the feeling. 30 minutes or so later, she gets off. As we walked towards the parking garage stairs to get to our car, I saw him sitting on a bench waiting for me. The benches aren't super close to the elevators. They're closer to the restaurant, if anything. The second I spotted him, my blood ran cold. He saw us walking towards the stairs to the parking garage and started running towards us. I was face to face with him by the time we got to the top of the stairs. We booked it back to the restaurant and used the employee elevator to get to our car. And an employee escorted us to the car as well. The employee told us there are a lot of cases of homeless people who walk around the restaurants, so I presumed he was homeless and just walking in and out of the restaurants until he saw me. I'm incredibly thankful I trusted my gut and that I saw him. I don't know what would have happened to us if I didn't see him at first, but I don't want to find out. This is a story that pops back into my mind from time to time. I've only told it to a few people, but I definitely feel like it deserves its place in here. It's for sure one of the scariest moments I've ever had as a child. Back when I was around 10 years old, my mom finally decided that it was time for her to start taking her driver's license. When she began taking lessons, she was struggling a lot. For that reason, my dad decided that he wanted to do some practice with her besides the official driving lessons with her instructor, just to make sure that she passed the upcoming test first try. My little brother and I were attending swimming lessons at this nearby university at the time. Behind a forest area near the university lays this huge student parking area surrounded by trees, which turned out to be basically empty every weekend. My dad saw the opportunity to take my mom here to drive around for a bit and brought my little brother and I with them since we were too young to stay home alone. We brought a football with us. When we arrived to the parking lot later on the evening, my parents began their practice. My little brother and I quickly got bored though and asked if we could go over to this little grass field on the side of the parking lot to play some football. My parents let us, since they always be able to keep their eyes on us whilst driving around. After playing for some time, my parents ended up driving around in the other end of the parking lot. They were approximately 300 to 400 meters away from my brother and I. Suddenly this white Toyota pulls into the parking lot. We were playing almost right at the entrance. The car turns around and stops on my right side with the vehicle facing the exit. The driver rolls down his windows and he presents himself as Thomas. He looked friendly, was good looking, and young. I guess would be around 30. This is where things started to get weird. On the passenger seat was a woman covering her face with a newspaper. All I could see was long blonde hair. And on the back seat was a baby sat in the baby chair. Thomas immediately states that he's from the police, and that we have to get in the car immediately as he has to talk to us. My brother actually took 2 steps towards the vehicle, but I stuck my arm in front of his chest as I was sensing something was off. The woman was still covering her face at this point, not saying a word. Thomas then again raised his voice and told us once again to get in the car or else he had to come out and get us. My brother and I froze out of fear. Suddenly, the woman put down the newspaper, showed her face, and told us in the most calm, mothery voice to just listen to the man. The woman looked young, pretty, and like a person who wouldn't hurt a fly. At this moment, I began screaming as loud as I could. What we hadn't seen at this point was that my dad was already running as fast as he could towards us. He was coming from behind the vehicle, so we didn't see it. My parents didn't have time to drive to us since the road down the parking lot was twisted all the way. When my dad heard my scream, he started yelling as loud as he could, "Hey, who the f are you? Get the f away from my children." As soon as Thomas heard my dad and realized my brother and I weren't alone, he threw his car into gear and took off as fast as he could. He most definitely looked like a person who shot himself when he saw my dad. My dad was furious and told my brother and I to hurry up back to the car. He didn't even think about calling the police at that point. He wanted to beat up the guy himself. That resulted in us driving around for the next hour trying to find him before my dad cooled down and decided that he should just probably call the police. We never found out who these people were, but this episode taught me to never judge a book by its cover. People can be the most friendly looking people in the world and still wish evil upon you or the ones you love. I'm not sure what these people would have done to us. I'm sure about one thing though. They definitely weren't from the police. This happened about 21 years ago when I was around 9 years old, but I still vividly remember that day. I was with my grandmother and her dog, a big black Great Dane. We were walking on the side of a little country road in the middle of the woods. At 20 minutes walk from my house, we used to come here for picking up chestnuts. At one point, the dog went a little further into the woods and I started to follow him. At the same time, a car arrived on the road and stopped. I looked at my grandma, and she'd made me a sign to tell me to stay where I was. I saw her talking with the driver. He looked like a middle-aged man. From where I was, I couldn't hear exactly what they were saying, but I heard my grandma raise her voice. I saw the man open his car door. I was sure he was going to grab my grandmother. I was so scared. She screamed to me to run into the woods, but a big dark shadow ran into the guy. It was the dog. I think he heard the panic in my grandma's voice and that he understood there was a danger. The guy got scared and quickly closed the car door, then got out. I asked my grandmother what happened. She just told me that he was a crazy man and that we should go home through the woods and stay away from the road. She also told me to stay close to the dog. Thankfully, we got home and didn't see the man again. From this day, we never went picking up chestnuts in this area again, and we stopped to do walkings around the house for many years. And we never went walking anywhere else without a dog. I think that's also why I remember this day so precisely, even if I never saw that man again. He was a feeling of danger around our home for a very long time. A few minutes encounter turned into years of fear. Despite his size, the dog was usually a completely harmless dog who got scared of everything, even cats or chickens. But that day, he was the bravest dog on earth.